and welcome to this week's episode of the Goodrum Show with me, Chris Goodrum. I'm back, as you can see. Been away for a little while, but now that the study is completed, new bookcases, new lighting, not quite a new me, but it all feels new and sparkly and yeah, okay. Anyway, thank you for watching the last episode of the show, and thanks for your for hanging around and you know, waiting for my return. That's very much appreciated. This week I thought I would do, as it's a return episode, look at a brand new independent bottling company, or relatively new independent bottling company. So as you can see from the title page, we are looking at a range bottled by Eastlin Alba. So Eastlin Alba is a small company that was founded in 2016 by Megan Brown and Woody Tan. Apparently the name Eastlin Alba apparently means Scotland eastwards, and they kind of set up to sort of do bulk exports and bottlings for the Far East. Apparently Woody got into the industry after he completed his master's degree in brewing and distilling at Heriot-Watt University, and worked for a few other companies, Glen Moore for example, and apparently Megan decided on a career change from being a neuroscientist. I mean, that's a bit of a jump from neuroscience to bottling whiskey. I mean, I've often said that sort of being an independent bottler isn't rocket science, and well, in this case it's not neuroscience either. All you need is contacts and money, basically, at the end of the day, to be an independent bottling company. But anyway, so they're doing all this sort of bulk bottling and bottling for the Far East, and then just decided, I guess, to expand the operation to sort of do some bottlings purely for the UK, and I think sort of around Scotland is where they kind of started. So in 2022 they launched their brand called Woodrow of Edinburgh, and apparently, interesting little story about the name is that they were trying to come up with a name for their range, and they were sort of, you know, throwing ideas around and sort of names and what have you, and it was apparently while they were doing the dishes they came up with this Woodrow of Edinburgh, because Woody's name is Woodrow, they live in Edinburgh. Simples, as they say. So yes, so Woodrow of Edinburgh, and they started distributing sort of around Edinburgh, that kind of area, but have now decided they want to sort of like branch out and move further afield. Hence why they got in touch with me and sort of said, you know, do you want to taste some samples? And I said, yeah, why not? And because a certain company has actually put some of their bottlings on the shelves, I thought it might be an idea to sort of do a review. So let's have a look at today's one. Right, okay, so we're going to kick off with a 12-year-old Aberlour. These are all single cask bottlings, bottled at cask strength, natural colouring, yada yada yada, all the usual, as you would expect. So 12-year-old Aberlour, distilled in 2011, October of 2011, bottled in July of 2024, a refill bourbon barrel number 700323. Always love to see Aberlour without any blanketing sherry, so always that should be hopefully a good fun one. Bottling number 2 we'll be looking at is a 15-year-old Royal Brackla, distilled in September of 2008, bottled in September of 2023. Again, a refill bourbon hogshead 3872. This was another thing that got me kind of interested. Lots and lots of ex-bourbon casks, none of this mucking about with sort of weird and wonderful wine finishes and all that kind of stuff. As I've been going on about, yes, there's this big fetish for doing that, to try and make one's Craigellachie different from somebody else's Craigellachie, and I think there's been a kind of, like I said, I think some people have just lost sight of the fact that, you know, leave it in an American oak barrel and just bottle a really, really good expression of whatever that particular distillery is. So bottling number 3 carries on the theme of refill bourbon. This is a 10-year-old Mortlach distilled in December of 2013, bottled in June of 2024 at 59.5% refill bourbon hoggy 814727. Then what did I say about finishing? No, I mean, yeah, you've got to have sort of, you know, some finishes and stuff like that in your range, and some sherry, matured stuff. Got, you know, people like that, you know. Not everybody's got exactly the same taste as what I have. So this is a 10-year-old Teaninich, distilled in November of 2013, bottled in June of this year. It was a refill bourbon hoggy, finished in first fill American oak Oloroso hoggy for 21 months. Cask number 707154. Bottling number 5. Yes, all right. I know I'm still missing some Glencairns. Some things don't change. This is a 33-year-old Strathmill. A bit of a big jump in age statement here. So this is, interestingly enough, a sherry hogshead finished in refill bourbon. Now, you kind of sort of think, well, why would you do that? And that's, I guess, the sherry's maybe getting a little bit out of hand. Maybe we want to sort of calm it down a bit. Sort of, who knows? Cask number 2147. Distilled in May of 1991, bottled in May of 2024 at 49.7%. And the final bottling, that's quite an intriguing one. This is a Inchfad, so the sort of weird and wonderful, sort of fairly heavily peated malt out of Loch, Lomond. This is technically a 5-year-old. It's actually a vatting of various American oak and European oak Oloroso casks and PX blood tubs, casks number 1536A to H. So distilled in April of 2009, or certainly the youngest component, bottled in July of 2024 at 59.5%. So yes, weird, funky, peaty, sherried. Yeah, that one's going at the end. So anyway, I think this is going to be an interesting episode of the show, interesting lineup. So let's kick off with the ex-bourbon Aberlour then, shall we? Right, okay, so let's see what the 12-year-old Aberlour gives us then, shall we? That's a nice nose. Quite honeyed but fresh, malty but citric. There's some white fruits, touch of lime. The oak is actually sort of got this quite sawdusty edge to it. It makes it feel a lot older than 12. This is actually a lovely cask, and it's just, like I said, it's lovely to sort of see behind the veil of sherry, I guess. Certainly with regards to, yeah, and this used to be one of the big things about independent bottling companies. They would bottle these kind of things, you know, American oak aged whatever, and you don't see so much of it these days. You don't see these kind of bottlings, and it's a lovely whiskey. So we'll pass on. Chewy, malty, quite rich. Apricot, apple, white fruit, barley. Again, it's got that sort of lovely, mature, sawdusty oak character. It's not, you wouldn't mistake this for something, you know, sort of in its 20s or its 30s, but certainly it feels a lot older than 12. It's got a lovely mouth feel, touch of toffee, vanilla, masked obviously, nice orange note in the aftertaste. So let's put a little drop of water and see what that does to the nose. And it's kind of brought out the vanillins. It's emphasising the oak, a little bit more vanilla, more toffee, less complexity from the spirit, but still nicely balanced, I think. So that's right. Yeah, likewise on the palate. slightly emphasised the oak, maybe diminished some of the complexity a little bit, but it's softened it, it's rounded it out, it's lovely and malty. I think that's a really good starting whisky. Good Right, okay, so let's move on to the second whisky of the afternoon, just about. This is the 15-year-old Royal Brackla. Let's see what the nose gives on this one, shall we? Pretty heavily oaky, it has to be said. Lots of fudge, vanilla toffee. There's a little bit of summer fruit, touch of cereal, a little bit of earth possibly. It's fairly simple, fairly straightforward. I mean, that's the thing with Royal Brackla. I've never really come across a Royal Brackla that's kind of, you know, really blown me away. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as saying it's a filler malt, but it's not. I've never really found it to be overtly complex. I mean, it's pleasant, absolutely nothing wrong with it at all. Just a bit complexity challenged, that's all. Let's see what the part's like. Yeah, again, pretty heavy on the oak. Desiccated coconut, quite dry and quite alcoholic in actual fact. Very mass, you really taste that. A little toffee, look, no, not coffee, cream coffee possibly. Not a great deal of anything else. There's a sort of semblance of fruit, semblance of richness. I mean, maybe sort of putting a little bit of water with it will bring out some fruit and maybe sort of dampen the oak slightly. Might do the opposite. Yeah, it has. It's brought out some lovely sort of tangerine, orange, but it's a little bit insubstantial. It's pleasant, but it's not sort of, you know, stirring the nether regions, as they say. Anyway, let's see what the palate's like now. Yeah, again, it's brought out a little bit of orange fruit. It's got a sort of like that kind of caster sugar coating to it, and it's again not really very complex, a little bit longer. It's pleasant, it's nice, but it's not earth-shattering. Okay, so let's move on to the 10-year-old Mortlach. Let's see what the nose gives us on this end, shall we? That's another nice nose. Quite chunky, lots of honeycomb, again lots of oak, toffee, juicy apricot, lemon, minerals, a little bit of ginger, so a little bit of a rawness there possibly, touch of anise as well. Interesting nose. I mean, you know, Mortlach again is kind of like, you know, in that kind of, you know, sort of Blair Atholl-y, sort of Aberlour-y kind of fairly rich and chunky style, and it's fairly rich and chunky, so yeah, good. Lots of distillery character. Let's see what the part's like. Now, that's a bit of an odd palate, it has to be said. I'm getting this kind of mentholated sort of star anise character that's kind of running through it. It's a bit mass, it's a bit malty. It's kind of not what you would expect from Mortlach, to be honest with you, which is kind of feeds into the narrative of why this particular cask was probably sold. On the nose it comes across quite Mortlach-y, but the palate is just not Mortlach-y at all, to be honest with it. It's decidedly odd. Let's put a little drop of water with it and see what happens to it. Quite citric now, and it's a little lean feeling. Touch more toffeed oak possibly, although there was a fair amount of oak to start off with. Yeah, again, it's okay. Let's see what the palate's like now. that sort of mentholated aniseedy sort of note has kind of like dissipated a bit. I can still taste it. It's a little bit fuller, it's a little bit softer. Again, it's pleasant, you know, it's okay. Right, okay, so let's move on to the Teaninich. So refill bourbon hoggy, and then 21 months in a first fill American oak Oloroso hoggy. Let's see what nose gives on this end, shall we? Oh, it's a sherry monster. Big, four square, chunky, dried fruits, Oloroso, dates, raisins. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I do wonder why independents tend to use sort of Teaninich and other light sort of spades to be sort of finished in Oloroso. You why not do it to sort of something with a bit more cojones, you know, something that handle like Mortlach or Blair Athol or something like that. But there seems to be this obsession with, and I suppose probably part of the reason is because Teaninich doesn't really have a huge amount of character. It can be a nice light citric sort of grassy spay. It's nothing to sort of seriously write home about, but I'm not getting any of that in here. I mean, you know, all right, finish it for maybe 6 months or so, give it a judicious finish, but 20 odd months in, you know, first fill, too much sherry. Let's fill the pass on. Very clean, very soft, very juicy. Raisinated fruits, a little bit of sour fruit. Again, masked, but not sort of too bitter. I mean, it's a pleasant sherried whiskey, it has to be said. But that's all I'm getting. I'm getting no distillery character. There's a bit of treacle, a bit of dried citrus rind, that kind of stuff, and it's all kind of, yeah, sherry. Let's see if putting a little drop of water will do it. Make any difference to it? No. Alright, a little bit of beeswax, I suppose. A little bit more drying tannins, but no real distillery character again. It's all very, very sherry. Let's see what passes on. The palate is very much the same. It's soft, it's quite citric now, so that kind of, I mean, that kind of that's got some nice balance to it on the palate, because that sort of citric note that's now come out has kind of lifted it a little bit and kind of offset some of the sweetness of the sherry. But again, it is all very much sherry dominated, and if you like that kind of thing, if that floats your boat, then that's a great bottling. For me, it just doesn't have enough kind of complexity. As you well know, this is not going to be the first one I've said that about. So, but yeah, very clean, good bottling. Okay, so let's move on to the 33-year-old Strathmill. Always like Strathmill. It's certainly a distillery that I quite favour. It has that very orange muscatty kind of character, which I just love the sort of, you know, big fruity citric spirits or whiskies. Anyway, so this is a sherry hoggy and then finished in a refill bourbon hoggy. Interesting way round of doing things. Don't see it very often, but I actually think that a lot of Indies should probably do more of that. You know, okay, yes, get a little bit of, or get a rather large amount of sort of sherry character or whatever it is into the whiskey itself, and then just give it some time in an, you know, American oak hoggy or a barrel or something like that, just to basically allow it all to marry and maybe just mellow out a little bit and just take some of that overt sherry edge off, if you've aged it for too long in the sherry cask, of course. If you've been a bit more judicious, then maybe it doesn't need that. But anyway, let's see what the nose gives us. Very, very oaky. A lot of American oak. I'm getting sort of sweet corn, vanilla, coconut. Yeah, a lot of corn, fat corn, edgy corn. No, not edgy corn, citric corn. A little bit of spice, some gentle dried fruit, banana, marzipan, cereal. A little bit of orange, there's a smidge of it coming through. It's kind of like when you're working hard to kind of get the distillery character in me. It's 33 years old. It's got, I suspect, probably been stuck into an American oak barrel because the sherry was kind of a bit, yeah. I mean, it's not bad. Oh, it's a lovely nose. I mean, but it's a very oaky nose. And I should hate this. I should go, no, this is too one-dimensional, this is too oaky and no distillery character. Well, there's a smidge of distillery character, but oh my God, it's beautifully old, mature, but not overly sawdusty. But there is an element of sawdust there. I'm being a complete and utter bloody hypocrite here and going, oh, that's a lovely nose. But then it's an oaky nose. I mean, it's kind of, oh, just sometimes things just sort of like, you know, go against your grain, but even so you go, oh, that's a lovely nose. That is a fabulous nose. If it just had a little bit more sort of Strathmill character, I would be going, but it's still, you know, I'd quite happily sell it, and yeah, and I think I have done. Anyway, let's see what the palate's like. I do get a little bit of satsuma and a little bit of orange right on the finish, but it's a real battle between the oaks. It kicks off with the American oak. It's luscious, it's mature, it's silky, there's lots of vanilla, marzipan, a little bit of spice, a bit more sherry character on the palate, a bit more sort of dried fruit, a little bit more raisins, sultana, dark chocolate, minerals. A little drying tannin, but there's just such a wealth of fruit there. You know, I mean, it probably did spend a little bit too long in the sherry cask, it has to be said, and maybe it was tiring a little bit possibly. So a bit of a sort of like, you know, a couple of years in the American oak has kind of rejuvenated it, has given it a big whack of American oak, vanillins. Now, I suppose over purists are probably not going to be too happy with that. I just think that makes it just a beautiful whiskey. Again, I would have loved to have seen a little bit more Strathmill character, but there is a little element of it on the finish, and so I'm kind of like going, oh, it's expensive, but it's a lovely whiskey. It's kind of, you know, am I getting too hung up about distillery character, or should I just kind of like go, just enjoy the whiskey for what it's actually giving me? And in this instance, I'm probably, like I said, being bloody hypocritical and saying, I'm just going to enjoy that because yes, it's an oak fest, but my God, it's a beautiful oak fest. Yeah, not a good way, bad way of putting it, I think. Right, okay, on to the final bottle of the afternoon. So, time for some peat and time for some sherry as well. Oh, let's see what the nose gives us on here. Meaty, lots of barbecued meat. We're in a sort of like an almost kind of like leche kind of style. Medicinal, earthy, bonfire smoke, chunky sherry, astringent green herbal tannins. Yeah, that's kind of like the usual weirdness that I would expect from Inchfad. I will say actually the sherry I think has kind of like just rounded the edges off, and it's just kind of, I wouldn't say detracted from the weirdness, but it's kind of tempered the weirdness, shall we say. There's some chocolatey notes, there's some green tannins, there's some astringent fruit, there's a saltiness as well. And like I say, you know, comparisons with leche, or a relatively heavily sherry leche, yeah, quite there. I mean, I like it. I like a little bit of weirdness every now and again, a bit of get your funk on, as they say. Oh, no, I'm a bit too old to do to say that, aren't I? Anyway, let's see what pass wine. Malty, chocolatey, lots of raisinated fruits kicking off, treacle, menthol, herbal peat, astringent coastal, salty peat, barbecued meat, green tannins, funky, herbal, peaty, sherried. What's not to like? I mean, you know, it's got loads of distillery character. I mean, and that's the thing with Loch Lomond. I mean, you cannot say that Loch Lomond, in its various guises, does not have distillery character. That has it by the bucketful, and it deals with sort of everything that you can throw at it. Big sherry, all that kind of stuff. Handles it amazingly well. Quite nice sweet sourness going on in the aftertaste. I love that. I mean, that is just absolutely fun. I mean, that's your end of the evening kind of session whiskey. Well, it's not really a session whiskey, but the end of the session whiskey, if you see what I mean. Let's put a little drop of water with it. I honestly don't think it needs it. I mean, I know it's 59.5%, and I know you'll probably feel it if you have a couple of them and then stand up. But that wears that alcohol really, really well. Let's see what the nose is like. Okay, slightly lessened the sherry a little bit. I'm getting some more American oak vanillins, a little bit of coconut. It's still quite meaty. It's still quite peated. The peat hasn't sort of run away once you put a little bit of water with it. It's a little bit more astringent as well, almost acerbic. Still fun, absolutely wonderful. Let's see what the buzz like now. Still meaty, still herbal, a little softer, maybe less funky, although it still has that sort of lovely funkiness. Chewy, generous, rich, full. Yeah, that is a lovely whiskey, it has to be said. And like I said, it's one of those dangerous ones where you can sort of like have that neat and it really doesn't taste like it's almost 60-odd%. But either way, neat with water, yeah, really like that. That's good. Right, okay, so let's sum today's episode of the show up. Firstly, a big thank you to Megan from East Lynne, Albert, for the samples for today's episode of the show. I hope you think it's been a very fair appraisal, and I think overall 50%, or thereabouts, I think. Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, I was tasting a number of new samples from another independent bottling company last night, in actual fact, and I think there was 7, and of the 7, one got a tick, one was good, and one got a question mark. All the rest, no. But then they were kind of Deanston, and actually the tick went to Dufftown. Can you believe that? And it was I'm pretty certain it had been finished in peated casks, because Dufftown, peat, yeah, okay. Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about today's sample. So yeah, I think sort of Woodrow's, I think sort of like 50% hit rate, pretty damn good as far as I'm concerned. Loved the Aberlour. I mean, if you want to sort of see behind the sherry, and as I've said, this always used to be the strong point of the independents, bottling stuff that the distilleries would often never bottle. And so you'd see American oak aged, or 100% American oak aged Aberlour, Macallan's, stuff like that back in the day. And it gives you a peek as to the character of the whiskey without sort of all of that kind of sherry going on. So for that, yeah, I thought that was really, really very, very good. Royal Brackla, again, Yeah, I mean, it's raw Brackla, okay. Like I said, you know, one could be a little bit harsh and say it's a filler malt, but it's never been sort of like, you know, a blow you away kind of whiskey or malt. I mean, when it gets to sort of like, you know, some serious age, you get all that sort of lovely oxidation and sort of sawdusty oak, and yeah, it becomes absolutely gorgeous. But, you know, in that sort of intermediate period, it's all a bit kind of, yeah. And so the Mortlach, I mean, yeah, nose, loved the nose. Nose was kind of like, yeah, American oak aged Mortlach. I don't know what the hell was going on with the palate. I mean, that was kind of like, you know, just a really weird cask. And, you know, like I said, it ties into that kind of whole belief that distilleries kind of sell off casks because they just don't follow the distillery flavour profile. And that one, well, I just fell into that one, it has to be said. So on to the Teaninich, the sherry finished Teaninich. It was pretty much as I would expect it to be, you know, light Speyside whiskey, too much sherry equals too much sherry. So yeah, we'll move on from that one. The Strathmill, like I said, I mean, you know, absolutely gorgeous whiskey. Love that whiskey. Again, like I said, one feels slightly hypocritical in saying that it was all about the oak, but that oak was gorgeous and mature, and there was yeah, I will say there was a little bit of Strathmill character that was there right on the end, and you have to kind of search for it and know what you're looking for. But and yes, it's a bloody expensive whiskey, but oh, I love that, and I love the Inchfad as well. I love it when it's a bit weird and wonderful. I have a soft spot for Loch Lomond. I mean, it's a, you know, just one of those sort of spirits, really, isn't it? It's just sort of like, you know, kind of far out and funky, and that like I said, the sherry was kind of taking a little bit of an edge off that funkiness, but there was enough there to basically sort of like say, yep, this is an Inchfad. So yeah, good one to end on. Really enjoyed that. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of the show. I hope you're glad to see that I'm back, and hopefully now, you know, normal service will be resumed. So until next week in the brand new studio space, all I can say is good afternoon and good running.